Welcome back to Did I Do That? This is episode 3 of our Dream Outdoor series where we build the substructure of our deck. This episode will be a combination of time lapses and pictures, and I'll explain what we're doing along the way. Thanks for stopping by and enjoy. As you can see here, it's a little bit later, and we're still working on getting these tough blocks down. This tough block is good to go and level. You just put a nice little paver base underneath it and make sure it's nice and level. And we got to make sure that we're staying in line with our ledger board over there, as well as staying level from the very top. So we're going to keep working on putting down these paver bases and setting the tough blocks down, and then we're going to attach our next frame. So it was time to put together our joists. We ran them parallel to the ledger board because we wanted the deck boards to run into the house. These are 12-foot boards, and we put them on 16-inch centers. And once we got those connected, it was time to do some blocking. And I will note we also went back and added some additional blocking that we didn't catch on video, just to sturdy this section up a little bit more. This was just kind of like an initial job to keep it sturdy while we finished building out the rest of the substructure. Then it was time to move on to the next section. One of the most difficult parts of this was making sure that everything was square, and you can see our orange square laying up there on the ground. And that was one of our most handy tools for this entire project, to make sure that we were keeping everything square and level. And some of the boards were a little warped, and we were able to kind of draw those in with some blocking to straighten everything out a little bit. At this point, it was time to add posts. We hadn't done a post at this point because the tough blocks were on the ground, but we did the post the same way. We put a tough block on the ground, put the post inside the tough block, and then attached. Alright everybody, as you can see behind me here, the substructure's going. We've almost got it down to the end, the first section. So we will continue working on it to get it out all the way to the end and extend the section over there. This part of the substructure against the house is almost done. We've got one more section to do, but we're going to go ahead and start building out where the deck is going to get wider over here. And this is where the gutter's at. If you remember from episode 2, I talked about we would handle this gutter situation later. So as you can see, we've moved this gutter downspout to go right up against the post, and we're going to run it down the post, and it's going to fit perfectly under the substructure. So we have to get a couple joint pieces to make it turn, and it will go underneath the substructure of the deck. Up to this point, we were just repeating the same steps over and over again, and now it was time to actually make the deck wider and give it a little bit of character and more space. So what we had to do was ensure that these first boards were square, and we put them on the tough blocks, made sure everything was nice and level, and then it was time to start hanging the joists. Finally, this section was complete, and it felt like the vision was finally starting to come together. You can see we added a couple more posts and some more blocking in the middle. We also went back and added more blocking later on. We didn't catch that on video either, but once again, just wanted to let you all know what we did. And now it was time to start on the last section of the deck. This was the part that was going to be the highest off the ground and was going to require the most support. So the first step here was getting our post into place, making sure that everything was level and square. And once we had the outside frame established, it was time to once again start hanging joists. The fun part about creating the substructure of this deck is that no two parts were alike. It required a lot of thought, a lot of putting the puzzle pieces together, and it was quite challenging. Here's a couple still photos we took for y'all just to show where the posts were positioned to support the deck. For each of these posts, the steps were the same. You established your base with the paver base, made sure that your tough block was level, and then you went and measured the post to cut it to size so that it would support the deck. It was at this point where we really started to see progress in the substructure, and we were finally able to see the shape of the deck come together, especially with the corner piece here, where you can start to see the character of the deck develop. This corner piece required us to cut it at an angle and then attach it with adjustable brackets. And once the corner piece was attached, it was time to do blocking in this section until we were so rudely interrupted by a summer thunderstorm. However, once the rain stopped, it was time to get back to work. And here is the final product of the substructure. There's still a little bit of blocking we did after these pictures were taken, but this is in essence the substructure of our deck. And now it is time for us to move on to putting on deck boards. That'll be the next video. Thanks so much for stopping by, and we'll see you all in episode 4.